I'd like to sort of share some thoughts. So the tentative topic that we have designed for the discussion today is, as parents, are we genuinely support the development of our sons and daughters? So that's a very serious and also a very critical and very sensitive problem that we also always have in our minds as parents. So I myself, as a parent, as a father, also kind of thinking about these things. Am I doing the right thing to my kid? Am I treating my kid in a good way? Or am I understanding? Do I understand my kid properly? Whether I'm able enough to sort of understand what exactly she means to me, right? So I like to share some thoughts about this. Before that, I'm really willing to give a little bit of our overview about the talk today. So I'll be only talking for from 20 to 25 minutes, the maximum. So then after that, we can have a little bit of a conversation, sort of if you have any questions or any clarifications and suggestions. So my presentation today so the first I will be talking about how we understand our child. And then I'm trying to understand and trying to sort of share some ideas and thoughts on challenges and issues in terms of identifying and understanding our child. And then I have come up with a little bit of research, and then of course I have come up with some thoughts, and which I sort of identify as 10 steps to follow in order to understand our kids and to support our kids in a very sort of very positive manner. So then of course we can go into a Q&A session. So before moving to the presentation, let me give a little bit of brief introduction about myself. Then of course you will know that what is my basically scope of work and scope of sort of academic interests are. So professionally, I'm a linguist. I'm a psycholinguistics. I research about the brain functions of language, basically how the language is produced and processed in the human brain. And I'm a researcher in terms of linguistic researcher. And I'm also a senior lecturer in linguistics at the University of Colombo. So I have done my undergraduate at University of Colombo and also La Trobe University, Australia, and have done my master's in Texas Tech University, United States of America. So where I have sort of studied psycholinguistics as my major, in particularly in language acquisition and language acquisition strategies of kids, and how the brain functions are sort of could be used to identify the language processing and language sort of acquiring process of the children and adults as well. So apart so basically, apart from everything, like I'm a linguist, I teach at the university, I do public lectures, I go and sit in different types of meetings, and I do a lot of research. But at the end of the day, when I come home, I'm the father to my daughter. So literally what I felt when our Mr. Pali Gunasekara, the principals, asked me to sort of give a talk, but I'm going to talk literally. So am I experienced enough as a father, because I have only one child, so I'm not that much, I mean, in terms of age, I'm not that much a sort of a senior person. So, but what should I share, and what should I share with you people as fellow parents? So then I thought, so why don't we start by looking at our own selves, like as parents? So how do we understand ourselves as parents? Do we really know what our kids want, who our kids are, literally? So therefore, I would like to start this small discussion by asking you a very simple question. So you can just simply type it in and send it to the chat box. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you know about your child? How do you think? So few volunteer answers would be great to start this discussion. So do we really know our children? What do you think? Let me see. I don't know whether I can open up the chat box. So anybody who wants to talk even, that's fine. 5, 10. I can't see the chat box. Oh yeah, I can see. Okay, fine. There are a number of 5, 8, 7, 7, 8, 8, 5, 7, 9, 3, 7. So literally, I mean, if you get the median of this, you can say more or less we know something greater than 5 and less than 9. So literally we say like, we know half of our children's life, half. So what about the other half? So that's the problem. So if you know 7 out of 10, so if I believe like, I mean, I grade myself as like 3 or 4 maybe. Sometimes, I mean, I don't really like to go beyond 5 because I really don't know about her. Because why? Because they're very special, very, very interesting creatures in this world that nobody can understand like ever. That's the problem, you know. But we can see how they behave, how what in what environments they talk, in what environments they literally express themselves to us. So then let's see. So the results, of course, we know that almost all of us don't know our kids like fully. Like there were nobody who answered 10 out of 10. So that means there are things to know about our kids. So what we do. So let's see. Let me start by one of my personal experiences, which is quite related to my very recent research work, which I conduct with in cooperation with the Ridgeway area, the Children's Hospital. So this is something that we do research. We have initiated a research program on how smartphones and how sort of use of screen time could be affected to the brain development of children. So, and the human interactions in terms of love. So this is basically a sort of a two-way study that we carry out these days. So literally what we do is we look at this, look at the kids who come to the child psychiatric unit of the Ridgeway area hospital. And we talk to them, we talk to their parents, we observe the kids and see like how much of effect of the smartphone and or any other something the screen time that is used by the kid is effective to the health or sort of the brain development of the child. So surprisingly, some of the most of the kids that we observe who use the smartphones excessively, like say like more than hours and hours in at home or in the school or wherever, may have sort of, I mean, this is not sort of a quite finalized study yet, so I can't draw out like solid conclusions. But so far, based on our observations and basically data collection, so based on the data that we have gathered so far, it is quite possible that there is a big, I mean, a serious effect on smartphones and the using of the screen time to develop a later autism spectrum or sort of something to, I mean, some language acquisition issues in the kids' mind. So this is something that we can discuss later. So what I'm really wanted to start with is, we know that this is something that we all face today. So if you talk to 100 parents, most of, I mean, 75 to 80% of them would say like, well, my child is addicted to the smartphone. My child is using smartphone, like he or she doesn't eat. No meals, no smartphones, no whatever. So that means that the use of smartphones and the kids' behavior is quite integrally connected, you know, which is sort of cannot be removed from the kid. So that, are we really going to accept this factor? Are we really going to let our kids to go in this direction? So that's a problem. So we can discuss about this. So what are the strategies that we can use to avoid this? So as principals have said that the Zoom or whatever the use of smartphones due to the COVID pandemic situation has uh, increased the level of using smartphones by the kids. So which exactly help in one way to continue their studies uninterrupted, even during the pandemic period, but in another ways, it sort of may have harmed the students' future development of the brain development and sort of their personality development. So this is a very serious issue. But before that, so there are a lot of problems, like how do we understand our kids? Do we really know our kids? So that's one of the problems. So for example, recently I was invited to give a talk about the similar one of the similar talk in one of the schools in Maharagama. So I had like more than 250 parents in the audience. So I talked for like 1 hour or like 30 to 45 minutes. And then after that, I asked them whether you have any issues or problems if you want to discuss with me. So they were reluctant to talk in front of everybody, but after the session, trust me, I was talking with individual parents until 3:30 in the afternoon. So that much problems they had. So what are the problems they had was, if we analyze them very carefully, there are issues. Most of the issues that those parents faced was uh, they don't really know their kids. They don't really understand what are the factors that determine the behavior of the kids. So they think that's something that basically, oh, very lately my kid is very aggressive. So there was one parent who told me like, very lately my kid is very aggressive. So he get angry for no reason. So he shout at people. I mean, there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of complaints from the school and saying that he's not letting other students to be in the classroom. So he harm the people. He take things up, tear things out. So tear the book papers or the books and stuff like that. So being sort of aggressive. So I've been very carefully talking to these parents and asked like, do you have any issues at your home? Do you fight in front of your kids? It's like, yeah, sometimes. Lately we had some big fights. So, but they never thought that the behavior and the environment of what the student is living, or what the student is sort of nurturing, would be sort of the most effective or the most crucial factor to determine the character of the child. So it's the time. It's a time now we have to look back to ourselves and ask certain questions from us. Do we really know our kids? Do we really know how they express their ideas? I mean, for example, sometimes the kids would cry for no reason. So we thought like, if we start to think like, okay, so he may be crying something, maybe he's hungry or something like that. Maybe that's not the reason. Maybe he or she wants the attention of the parent. So let me give you one nice example. My sister is also a working parent. So she keep her very small daughter, like little kid, like 3 years old, with my mother. And I mean, this is quite similar in our most of our working parents' life. So the grandparents become parents like for the daytime, and when the parents come, they become grandparents again. So then the next morning, the grandparents has to take the role of the parents again, because the parent has to go and do their jobs. So that's quite understandable. So once my sister comes back from work, so we see a complete change in the behavior of the kid. She starts crying, bothering my sister, like she has never done during the daytime. So what my mother always says is like, මං එක්ක ඉන්නකොට නම් කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ, ඔයාවම තමයි ඔක්කොම ප්‍රශ්න. Then we were wondering like why she's doing that. So then we have to think, we have to rethink. So there were times in which my sister was like complaining, like, I've been busy all day, I've been working like hell, but when I come home, my kid is also troubling me. So I said, like, well, your kid doesn't know that you had a bad day in your work. What she knows is you came back home after your work. So that's the time she wants to spend the time with her mother. So then, of course, how do we manage these things? How do we understand these situations? So in one meeting with one of the patients at Ridgeway Hospital, I met this kid. Uh, that kid's parents were both bankers from a very reputed bank in the country. So they had two kids. One is 3 years old. The other one is 7 months old. So what? So both were taken care by the grandmother until the parents come at a very late at a very late time. So then, of course, what happened was this grandmother used to give the smartphone to the big kid, like 3 years old guy, and then she has to take care of the infant. So what happened at the end of the day, the 3-year-old became like developed a certain symptoms of autism. Maybe it's from the genetic factor, but still he has lost his human interaction. Sort of basically, he doesn't know how to talk to people because he's the whole day is looking at the phone. So these certain things arise not in a vacuum. That's the thing. That's what I want to say. Because there are things which is interconnected with our day-to-day life, our work behaviors, our work ethics, our day-to-day life, the routines of our life and all. So as parents, it is time for us to see how interconnected these factors are. How do we revisit ourselves and see what we have missed? What sort of we have to think? What are the minor factors that we have missed so far? What are the clues that our kids has given to us, but we have missed them because we never thought those were the clues that they are trying to say something. So do we really in a position to positively communicate with our kids? So that's one problem. So what we can do? So I try to come up with 10 ways to understand our kids better. So let's go by one by one. One, observe your child. So this is something very different from just look at your child. So we used to look at them. I know we look at them, we cuddle them, we talk to them, and we talk to them. So it's a very simple thing. But do we really observe them? So that's the problem. Are we really conscious enough to see the very tiny micro movements of our child? So do we really pay attention to these micro movements? How her his or her face changes in a point where we really don't think that's a big deal? Because we are dealing with people who really do not have a massive amount of experience like we have. So we deal with the people who have lived. Say, for example, if it's a grade, I mean, my daughter is from grade 4. So she has lived only 9 years in this world, out of which 1 or 2 years, she has no clue about what's happening out there because she was just crying and cooing and, drinking mother's milk. That's it. But out of that 9 years, she had only 7 years to experience the world. So then she may be thinking of certain ways in which she can pass a message to us, which we really don't notice because we are grown, we are adults, we have like 30, 40, 50 years of experience in life where we can hide our emotions, we can trick our emotions, and we can turn in our emotions into words and all. So sometimes the kid is not really developed enough to express themselves the way we are supposed to do. So then, of course, if we can stop looking at the child and if we can observe the child, every moment of the person, I think we might be able to experience a lot of things that we have never seen before. So that is one thing. Just don't look, but observe your child. So I come up with the second one. This is what we really miss when it comes to the working parents. or when it comes to this day-to-day life, we think that we give everything to our kids. We think that we sort of give the best out of everything, the best food, best clothes, best schools, and best education and everything. But do we really give them a quality time? I mean, just not just time, a quality time. A quality time, in my view, or in the view of most of these uh, educators and sort of the people who research and make theories about development of children's human behavior and stuff like that. So they sort of brand this word quality time is something that is come up with undivided attention. So it's not something that you sort of okay, Baba, you tell me, okay, fine, I'm doing something else. So not something like that. If you can have like 10 or 15 minutes at least a day, so keep your smartphones aside, keep your laptops aside, keep your televisions, turn them off, keep everything off, just take the kid into your lap, and can you better have a 10 or 15 minutes of a quality chat with your child? I mean, trust me, the kid will start talking. You will be surprised at the end of the day how much of information the kid has to give within that particular amount of time. I mean, trust me, I can tell you with my experience, I started with 10 minutes. Sometimes this can go up to 45 to 1 hour or 2 hours maybe. Or maybe a whole day sometimes. That you just don't do anything and you talk with the kid, because that's that much interesting. I mean, we can take it in a different way, because children are the people who doesn't have any hidden agendas in their minds. Because as adults, we know if you go to workplace, if you go to the society, there are people who talk to us, but they have something else from need from us. But the kids are the people who can really talk and express themselves genuinely, which is so much fun. So spend quality time with them. That's the second thing that I suggest you to do. The third one which is interlinked with the previous one, is the focused attention. So I'm trying to use some of these adjectives: focused attention, undivided attention, quality time. Why? Because those were the significant words that would elaborate the word attention. Because you can give attention, but what the kid always needs is the focused and undivided attention from the parent. So it's the time. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm suggesting it's the time that we rate ourselves first. We rated ourselves first. We know that. So we have rated yourself like 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, whatever the number it is. Now you can revisit your answer and see whether do we fit ourselves, could we fit ourselves to the scale of 8? Are we really a 7 parent, or are we really a 5 parent? What is missing? What's missing from our side? So it's something that we can sort of understand. And this is very important. This is something that they have been researched so far, like in the behaviorist theories and a lot of other theories and all. Despite everything, the environment is very important. So it is very interesting, and it is very crucial to be mindful about child's environment. So this comes with a number of, I mean, hundreds of misbeliefs, and which is so much spread out among different types of societies, especially in a society like Sri Lanka, because our society is a very hyper-cultural society. So we have lots of cultural beliefs. So for example, podi lamai mehema tamai. So for example, when it comes to the behavior of the boys, it is sometimes the father himself asks him to be rude, say like kolle pagitapa. Because there is a certain stigmatization, certain stereotypical identification of the parent. A boy should be like this. A boy should talk like this. Let me give you one nice example. I was on my last Monday, I was on my way from Kandy. We went for a family funeral and came back. On our way back, near Hangmal area, we had to stop our vehicle for some personal matter. we saw across the road, there were two little kids about the age of my daughter. They were wearing these hoodies and stuff, and they were wearing caps at turned other side. In front of the house, the father has placed them sort of a big speaker with two mics, and they were singing some songs which at the end of the day has like really filthy meanings. Those were, I mean, they don't really tally with even sort of a all-over student. Let's say these may be like 8 or 9 years old, but it was the father and the other parents themselves were cheering up, trying to show off that, oh, see, my son is a rapper. Now he's doing this rapping thing, and he's doing using all these filthy words, which I can't use in a public lecture. And they were sort of very proud of it. So are we really creating a good environment to our kids? So for example, let me give you another example. So there are some parents, I mean, I have seen. So they really think that a son or a daughter who is mischievous is something to be proud of. So like, අපේ කාට නම් කවදාවත් කියලා කරන්න බෑ දේවල්, අම්මෝ පිස්සු වැදෙනවා කියන දෙයක් අහන්නේ. එයාට ඉතින් ඕනේ කිව්වොත් ඕනෙම තමයි. එයාට ඉතින් දුන්නේ නැතොත් මාර ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි ඔන්න ඔය දීලා දාන්න. I mean, I ask myself, is that really necessary to do? Is it what we really need to do? Right? So are there any other ways, just not simply rejecting what they say, are there any other ways to compromise with them? If it is not good for the age or the health of the kid, so how we can sort of deny it in a very sort of very soothing, humane manner? So how we create the environment? So if you complain about the kid have the excess use of the smartphone by the kid, just think who gave that kid the phone in the first place. So who has given the kid the phone in the first place? I mean, after 6 months of time, after 3 months of time, after the kid was addicted to it, it is very easy to blame on the kid, saying like, මෙයාගෙන් දැන් මේක ගලව ගන්න බෑ, මොනවා කරන්නද, ඉල්ලුවට දෙන්නේ නැහැ, මාර වැඩේ. So just let us think like who gave it in the first place. This guy is watching TV like throughout the day. Who switched it on for him? Who showed the switch on button to him? Who gave him the whole list of cartoon networks available for them? So it is us who create the environment which is either favorable or non-favorable for our kid. So as wise parents, isn't it our responsibility to carefully think about the environment that we want our kids to be nurtured? So in that manner, it is something we have to be mindful. So this is something not everybody can do, but if you can have something, because it is very important to know that how a brain is developed, at which age the children pick up certain things. I think there is no need to learn about like big biology theories for this. I think every one of us as parents who has this the small pink color book which is given by this MOH, back of that book you may find like different learning and behavioral strategies followed by the kids based on the different age categories, like මාස 9 සිට 18 දක්වා ඇවිදීමට පුරුදු වෙයි. මාස 18 සිට 19 දක්වා ප්‍රශ්න අසමින් ඉගෙන ගන්න. So there is something sort of a brief description about or brief overview about what the basic behaviors of the kid depending on the age group or the age limit that they have. So to know the brain development of the child, you don't have to go anywhere. Just take out the book which we used to have, this bara satahana and the daruwage vardana satahana, turn the back page. So inner cover page has all these small details in it. And if you don't have it now, try to find it from somebody and see. So it's important that we know Because most of the modern researchers say parents are the neuro-architects of the child, because they are the people who really shape up the kid. It is us who shape the kid. It is us who create the environment. After we create the environment, we don't really have right to blame on child saying like, because they play in the ground that we made for them. So we just have to think back and see whether we have created the right ground to play them. So for example, do we really have to think like, if, I mean, from the first day, how are we going to limit the screen time that our kids are using? Just tell them very frankly. Sure, I'm giving you the mobile phone or the whatever the YouTube to watch, that's fine. But make sure that you will be getting only half an hour per day or like 20 minutes per day. You can choose at what time you want it, after meal or during meal or after before go to bed or whatever. But 30 minutes is 30 minutes, no more than 30 minutes. There are no 31 minutes. It's only 30 minutes. So something like that. So you give them, but you create the environment to play. Something like that. So the next one is, please come out from our own insecurities. Because I have another example. I have an aunt. This is true. I have an aunt whose daughter is sitting for the 5th grade scholarship this year. I mean, we don't have that problem in Polymath because we are in a different dimension. So I'm really happy with that, sir. Now, my aunt's daughter, she is in grade 5. Trust me, she's going for 7 classes for Shishatpur. I mean, 7 different classes. Because why? Mother always wanted to go to the university, but she didn't get it. So she has that personal anxiety, the insecurity that if I don't push my daughter enough, she would end up being myself again. So there are a lot of things that comes out there, because you know that the three-fourths of the Sri Lankan population is either middle class or lower middle class. So that means we have lots of insecurities in terms of economy, in terms of different things, in terms of professionalism, in terms of everything. We have lots of insecurities. So those insecurities lead ourselves to push our kids harder to gain something that we have missed in our life. If you look at most of the parents who really want to be their kids a doctor, either they really wanted to be a doctor and couldn't get through the exams. I mean, if the kid decides to be the doctor, that's fine. My God, go ahead. I mean, let me tell you one personal example. You won't believe that I never wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a person who studied biology, chemistry, and Sinhala for the A-level studies. But I didn't get the chance to do that because the education system in Sri Lanka didn't allow me to do that. So I did biology for the first time. I was selected to the university. I didn't go to the medical faculty. Then I did arts again. And then I was selected to the medical law faculty, but I wanted to be a lawyer either. So I ended up doing a linguistic degree. But today, I have pursued my dreams. What I'm doing is I'm researching about language inside the brain. So, but when I decided not to go to the medical faculty, my parents were shocked, especially my mother. She was like, why don't you want to be a doctor? I said, like, I mean, I will be a doctor, but the spelling of that DR will be different. So if capital D, capital R will be the medical doctor, but there will be a doctor in front of my name, but that would be capital D, simple R, the PhD. But I was thinking, if I were to go along with my insecurities of my parents, if I were to push towards the medical faculty or the law faculty, I'll be a doctor, fine. I'll earn a lot of money. I'll be a doctor in a hospital, but I will never be myself. So if the child wants to be a doctor, let him be. If the child wants to be an architect, let him be the architect. So this is something that we really miss in our education system. And the parents most of the parents in this country we really deal with our own insecurities, experience and anxiety. So there are a lot of experiences, bad choices we made during our life. What we are trying to do is we try not let that happen to our kid. So, but that at the end of the day, the kid would transfer into a person who really he or she never wanted to be. So, and then the seventh one, this is the lack. This is something that we don't really do in our lives. We don't listen to our kids. Most of the parents I have seen, even my parents sometimes, they didn't have courtesy to listen. Either they think that their parents, they know everything, or they don't really have time to listen. But I had a lot of things to say. So what they do is, if they want to talk, but the parents are not willing to listen, they'll find different ways to get the attention. They will smash things, shout at you, they will do certain things, try to get the attention and let you listen to what they have to say. So it is very important when you have a conversation with your kid, let the kid speak and try to listen to the kid. So, and then this is something that we really don't understand sometimes, which I have seen after talking to hundreds and hundreds of parents in different attempts. So most of the parents that they really sort of told me, so trust me, these 10 things I came up with based on the discussions that I had with lots of parents across the country when I had like one-to-one discussions. So sometimes children express emotions in different ways. So we don't really expect our kids to express their expressions or ideas, emotions in the same way. So say, for example, if you feel sad, so there's an integrated thing. So which is the counterpart of sadness is, if you're sad, you have to cry. If you're happy, you have to smile. If you're tired, you have to paint, or something like that. But children are different. Even we are different. There are introverted kids, there are extroverted kids. Some people wants to cry, some people don't cry, some people would express it in different ways. Some people would do something. So that's why we need to go back to the first point, observe. Because there are few things. One, because the kids are not experienced enough as we are, because they have lived only 8 to 9 years, 10 years maximum in this world. So they may find other ways to express their emotions, which we really don't know, which we really don't sort of focus on. I'm not saying that we are bad parents, but I'm saying that we are really good parents. For being really good, we may have missing some things that we don't really focus on the minor things, because we think about a lot of macro things. I mean, the amount of toys that we give to the kid, the amount of sort of to which hotel that we take him for the birthday, or to which country that we take the kid for vacation. But maybe that the kid only wants like 5 minutes of your time. So something like that. So we just have to think about that. And this is really important. So this is all connected. So understand your child's temperament. They have their own set of mind. They have the unique set of qualities that they really express and interact with the people. Sometimes they really like to talk with the people. Sometimes we want them to talk with the people, but they don't really want to talk with the people. So it's very tricky. I mean, it is very tricky. You can't never understand that unless you step into the kid's world, his mind or her mindset, and sit with the kid and talk and observe the kid. So this is really important. And then the next one is the most important thing that would harm the whole, I mean, the entire sort of the future of the kid, because pay attention to their imaginations. So trust me one thing, there was one parent in this, in a recent meeting that I had. She told me that my son is telling some strange things. I think he is sick. Trust me, these මං හිතන්නේ මගේ පුතාට මොකක් හරි ලෙඩක් තියෙනවා. එයා හරි අමුතු දේවල් කියන. So those are the exact words that she told me. I said, මොනවද එයා කියන අමුතු දේවල්? What are the strange things that she said, that the kid says? He says that එයා කියනවා එයා මොකද්ද කෑමක් කෑවා. ඒ කෑම කෑවට පස්සේ එයාගේ බඩෙන් පොඩි ඒ යටේ පැලවෙලා එයාගේ ඇඟින් ගහක් වැවෙන්න පටන් ගත්තා. Something like that. එතකොට එයාගේ අතපය දික් වෙන්න පටන් ගත්තා. අයාව ටිකකින් ගහක් වෙනවා මොකක් හරි වගේ කතාවක්. So something like that. මට හිතෙනවා සර් මේක මොකද්ද මේ මට හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියලා. I said, if the person who wrote Pinocchio, the story, if the person who wrote the Jack and the Beanstalk, if the person who wrote, I mean, don't go that far. Just think about J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter. So that's the kid's imagination. But we thought, the mother thought that the kid is sick. She has even taken that kid to a doctor as well. Doctor has given some medicine as well. I mean, I don't know, some tablets maybe for depression or something. But still, this is the situation. Do we really understand the imagination of the kid? So, because they are really creative people. They know certain things. They know things. They have a very, I mean, unpolluted imagination, which is super nice. If you let their imagination store, if you let the students, if you let our kids to sort of express their imagination, how they see the world in different ways. Listen to the questions they ask. I mean, trust me, as a principal said, the parents today are different, very different from the parents in the past. Also, the kids today are too much different from the kids from the past. So because we were born and raised in a society where we didn't have laptops, we didn't have tabs, we didn't have audiobooks, we didn't have Google either. But they live in a world that has everything, that has the access to everything. With just one touch, you can access the whole world. So the smart generation, you have to be, as parents, I think we have to be more smarter than our kids. We have to think twice. We have to think like a mile ahead and see how our kids behave. So I think that's what I have to say. Basically, those are the 10 things that I wanted to emphasize and wanted to sort of share things along with my experiences and stuff like that. So I guess you might get something. And then, of course, I invite you to revisit yourself and rate yourself again and see like how much of, if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you grade yourself? How do you score yourself? How much do you know your kid? So if you know your kid, the rest is very easy. I mean, the rest is just, you can change it in a blink of an eye. So it's something that we really have to focus on. So if you have any questions, please ask and we can have a little discussion. So let me stop by sort of thanking the school, the Polymath College, and the principal, sir, and all the teachers, and for inviting me, and also for the parents who have waited here for like nearly 45 minutes of time and sort of listening to something that I had to say. So literally, finally, what I want to say is children can do strange and silly things, and you may be wondering how to understand the underlying psychology guiding their decision making. So it is something that we have to revisit, and then only we can understand our kids. So, and at the end of the day, it is something that we have to see. We can grade ourselves, we can rate ourselves, and then ask the question from ourselves, saying like, as parents, are we really genuinely support the development of our children? Do we really support them? Or do we create the right environment for them to for them to be nurtured. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for inviting me again. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bandara. I'm sure it's very interesting and very informative. Dear parents, we can open the forum for Q&A. Mr. Bandara has a lot of experience, as I mentioned. ආදරණීය දෙමව්පියනි, මම හිතනවා අපේ සම්පත් දායක කොළඹ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ කතිකාචාර්ය අචින්ත බණ්ඩාර මහත්මයා ඔබේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට පිළිතුරු දෙන්න ලෑස්ති. එතුමාට බොහොම අත්දැකීම් තියෙනවා, පළපුරුද්ද තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මේ අවස්ථාව ඉවර කරනවා ආදරණීය දෙමව්පියන්ට. කැමැති භාෂාවකින්
Yeah, I have a question. My child's name is Vihas. He's in grade 2. Recently, I went to the parents' meeting. So I have talked with the teacher. I got to know, and because I also can see he's also into this screen thing. So sometimes I feel he's not giving his he can't concentrate sometimes properly. So but he's a brainy boy. He has some sort of knowledge, everything. When I tell something in the second part, not in the first time, the second time he catches things. So how can I do some sort of activity to reduce the screen time as well as increase his concentrations? Thank you very much. Because today also I bring him to my husband's house in Kurunegala because I want to stop this screen thing. I want to reduce that. I want to be with. I want to keep my child with his grandparents, and I want him to live with the environment actually, because in Colombo we are in a small place and we don't have that opportunity to give that freedom for them. So now I am here. I want to know some more activities and that we can give to the children to increase their concentration as well as to reduce the screen time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. And I think it's quite the common question that most of the parents have today. I mean, generally in Sri Lanka, even in the world maybe. So let us understand this in a very very practical manner. So it is not that the screen is bad. So the first thing is we have to understand. So we live in a smart world. We live in a world which is very digital world, which is everything is digital. So we have to use the digital screen. So there is no doubt in that. So it's something that we have to understand. How do we sort of keep ourselves? Like, for example, as adults, we know the strategies to which like you use to sort of avoid such distractions. Either we use a blue cut lens, or like to reduce the radiation part, or either we do some different activities, we change the mood, we change something. So basically the kids won't get that training. So what they do is like they stick to the screen and they just look at it. So one thing, what happened at a point is you said like so there are a lot of less of attention. So it's quite clear, because if you talk with us, I mean, it is not, I mean, this is a two-way process. I ask and I talk and you reply, and there is an interaction going on. So in the screen, most of the time that what we do is we deal with, it's the unilateral interaction is there. So there is no interaction back, like there is no response from it. So for example, that lacks the ability to the capability to the human interaction. So the person who is more dealing with the screen like throughout the day would lose the ability, I mean, gradually would lose the ability to interact with humans, because they don't know the strategies in which that we can interact with humans. So for example, When we talk from our body. So we talk with the hands and gestures and eye blinks, and so there are head nods, and so there are a lot of activities incorporated in the human speech to make it more interactive, to make it more human. So when you I mean, when you live a life with the screen, what happens is you lose that part. You lose the receptive part, right? So there are two-way process. You give and you get it back. So what we can do is, what I suggest is, so I mean, try using more time. I mean, available yourself to the kid. Then of course, I guess, I mean, the first thing is you have to keep your phone back away for a while sometimes. And then of
Yes.
course, I think something that you have done is really good. So change the environment, change the setting, because children are very adaptive. So they are very adaptable. So for example, they can adapt to a situation in a blink of an eye. So not like us. For example, if we are here in Colombo, I mean, if you take out and push ourselves to somewhere like into a remote village in the country and say like stay there for a week, we can only survive for 2 days or 3 days. Then we are eager to come back because we are not adaptable enough. But the kids are more adaptable because they can adapt to the situation in a very nice manner. So after the first day, let me give you one example. After the first day that I went to Ridgeway and then I saw those nice kids and talked to them, I came back home and I gave a big lecture to my sister for more than 2 hours and to his husband and said like, no excuses, take the phone from the kid. So it was really hard for them. Initially, it was really hard for them. She was struggling and she was sort of protesting. The kid was protesting to get it back, but she was adaptable. I mean, kids are adaptable, but doesn't mean that you have to, I mean, give away everything and, sort of, for example, take everything what they have. So you have to be very sort of generous to explain it. Like, I'm not saying that you can't use it. So there will be a time, but if you can compartmentalize your day with the kid, I mean, this is the holiday season. So sometimes it is easier to move with the kids better. So if you sort of compartmentalize the time, so for example, okay, so we'll have a family dinner time. So the family dinner time, no mobile phones, not even father, Apache, don't bring the phone. You don't bring the phone, no laptops, nothing. Just sit around the table, eat with the kid, start talking. Sometimes it works. And then what we also do is like we give such activities to do with the kid. So basically what we do is like we can, because if you ask the kid to take don't use the phone, take out a sheet, draw some picture, she won't do that. If you take 2 papers, sit with the kid, start drawing with her, then of course there is an interaction develops up. So which can lead into sort of moving away the kid from the phone. Give new experiences. Ask her to plant a small plant and nurture it, and to water it and see like how it grows, and talk to those leaves and touch them and see like how the texture is. So there are a lot of things that we can be creative in. I mean, I'm not saying like we have to be like so much, hard and saying like, don't use the smartphone, never use the smartphone. I'm not saying like that. I'm saying like, do it in a very smart way. Think of new ways in which that you can achieve that. I mean, it may be sort of very unique to our own kid. So for example, if the kid doesn't really like to draw, if you think like drawing is good, somebody says like drawing is good, then we have to go and ask the kid to draw, but the kid, it's not kid's piece of cake. Maybe he or she likes to listen to music. Maybe he or she likes to walk or like look at the birds or something like that. So observe the kid, talk to the kid, find the interest, find what he or she likes the most, and then start with that. So something that we can initiate. Then of course, she or he will develop a sort of a confidence saying that, well, I don't have to watch all day for something that can't reply me. So there is somebody out there who can really talk to me, who can understand my feelings and who has sort of a positive feedback on me. So then, of course, that confidence will lead to a long interactions, long communicative process, and long, very active lifestyle to initiate with the kids. So I think that's something that you can start.
In the chat, there is a query. Thanks for the talk. Are there any associations between screen time and psychiatric illnesses or behavioral problems in children found already? Is there any recommended screen time as such?
No, sir. So that's a very good question. It's a very clinical thing. So basically, they say that it different. I mean, there is no such sort of standard time. But so, for example, so if you are using Zoom, then of course, if you are studying for like 5 hours of a day, 5 hours a day, so basically you have to use a lot of screen time that we have used. But the thing is, like, if you use the screen time more than like hours of time, like in a very single span, so there are a lot of research going on in the world, like different organizations, like, because this screen time, the use of screen time and its effect is linked to different spheres of the world. So for example, the cognitive development of the child, so that's a different research area. Some people think about what happened to the health of the eye. Some people think about like the delay of language, like the autism spectrum and stuff like that. So basically there is no such standard time, but the lesser the lesser the better. So basically it's something that we sort of, if you look at a lot of research papers comes out in Google Scholar and all, you can see that some people, so most of the studies, they suggest that excessive use of screen time. So basically, if you say like, if it's a kid, if it is not much necessary, half an hour to 1 hour per day is more than enough. More than enough. I mean, that's not a clinically prescribed thing, but after some of the research that we might be able to sort of draw some good conclusions for that. But so far with the experience, so far the data, as the data expresses, so the lesser the better, sir.
Any more queries, parents?
I raised the question, Mandara.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you said there are a lot of research going on in Sri Lanka and rest of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any found associations between the screen time and behavioral problems? Direct associations, are there any now?
Yeah. There are associations.
What are the problems? Behavioral problems?
Well, there are some. So, for example, some of the conclusions done by some of the research basically says that, let's say, the excessive use of screen time would affect on the arrogance behavior, and then the less interaction, and then the eye contact and things like that. Also, it will also be effective in the language delay as well. So because that is something that is very critical. So some of the I mean, let's say 60 to 70% of the patients so far we have seen who has used the screen for more than 5-6 hours a day, or sometimes more, like excessive hours a day, sees that they have developed a certain amount of let's say less human interaction levels, and some sort of behavioral changes compared to the other kids. Like some people are really hyperactive, some people sort of have developed a range of physical sort of arrogance, and sometimes a little bit, let's say, they tend to be aggressive at some points. So there are few significant behavioral changes associated with literally with this excessive use of screen time.
Yeah, actually, the excessive screen time, that's why I raised the question as recommended such time, because when we refer to excessive screen time, we are referring to a particular amount of screen time? No, that's why
Yeah,
I
yeah,
asked.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually, merely screen time. As I'm wondering whether the now earlier days now school was also conducted in via online Zoom, and there was a much bigger screen time children were exposed to, and they were tired as well, as you
Yeah.
say. But there are some now. If some children do watch cartoons and
Mhm.
do some interactions on screen as well. Like Zoom is a one kind of interaction,
Yeah.
and other kind of interaction may be doing a video for. I mean, doing a one child may be taking a photograph of an insect or something. That is also screen time, no? So
Yeah.
watching a YouTube video which may be educational or not,
Yeah.
right? So I'm wondering whether there may be uh, some some types of screen time that can be interactive than he being alone. Now you said now when parents are going for work, they are left with grandparents, right? So there may be less interactions at home as well.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering whether having a screen in a short time, I'm not promoting it, but having less screen time necessarily, it doesn't say that he's having good interactions. Do you agree with me?
Well, so yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you for that question. And I think that's a very good observation. So basically, what I said was screen time is bad in a way. I mean, we live in a screen world. So we live in a screen world. So there are things that we can't avoid. I mean, for example, we have, I mean, as a lecturer myself, I have taught like 2 years span via Zoom for nearly thousands of students, which they really didn't have sort of interaction with the teacher. So, but I mean, even though it is interactive, I mean, trust me, it is not that much effective interactive as how do you do it in human interaction, something like that. So, for example, when my students came back to the university like 3 months ago, after 2 years of screen learning, online learning, so they were really, I mean, they were really strange, like, I mean, because
I agree. I agree
yeah,
what you say.
no,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, what I
what I'm
highlighted
trying to
was
say,
something else. Yeah.
no, what I'm trying to say is, what you say is quite true, is using screen time effectively, or like using a screen effectively, is sometimes maybe better than he being alone. So that's another story. But the thing is, now when it comes to the use of screen time, watching a YouTube video, whatever, even though it is very informative and sort of very educative and stuff like that, so the use of excessive screen time, that's why I use the word excessive. So if you do it in a very positively, very understandable manner, that's fine. But I mean, if you go down to the very true reality of this screen time thing, is what we know is that, I mean, for example, if we can sort of let the student to be very interactive on the screen and try use it very positively, using certain types of breaks and stuff like that, that's what I told you, like, as adults we know how to do it, but as kids what they do is, I mean, to be honest, if you ask like 100 parents and see like what they watch in this screen time is, mostly it may be sometimes cartoons or like some animated things or something that you can't be interactive with. So that's the problem. So that lacks the human interaction part. It doesn't mean that the screen interaction is bad. I'm saying like screen interaction is necessary. Screen is necessary for this smart digital world. But at the end of the day, the human interaction is also, I mean, if the excessive use of digital platforms or screen time surpasses the levels of human interaction, that's a problem. So that's only my concern is. So, but if you can be very interactive with the people, the kid, so that's fine. I mean, for example, if you sit with the kid and use the computer and do some practical stuff, then of course you have both things, like you have your interaction, human interaction with the kid, and you have the screen time, right? So that's why this is a very blur line. It's a very thin line between what is good and what is bad. So that's why I told you, like, we have to be very vigilant, and we have to be very sort of, let me say, very creative in that sense. So I hope that answered your question. Thanks.
Mr. Bandara, at the parents meeting, you highlighted one thing which I was very delighted, that when a child uses a screen, always the screen do what the child's instructions, only the child's instructions. But
Yeah.
when the child comes to the human world, it is not so. I think you better highlight it, no, Mr. Bandara.
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me that, sir. So I mean, that is something that I really wanted to tell, but I just missed it. So for example, that's what I told you, like, interactive in the sense. So as humans, to live in a certain society, if we, I mean, for example, we ourselves as adults, we know how to interact with the people. We know how to respond and, respect. So we know how to answer a question. We know how to deal with people. We know how to make connections, make human interactions. So what excessive, I mean, for example, when you look at the screen, you keep it like, you keep on watching the screen. It says that, well, it doesn't really, treat you back. I mean, it doesn't answer your question. It doesn't really, so I mean, if it's a Zoom thing, that's fine. But if it's just a video that you're watching, if just an animated something that you're watching at the end of the day, so you won't get sort of the reaction of the person unless you just see how it looks like, and then you create a stereotype of it. For example, this would be the reaction of a person if you ask a question like this. But if you come to the real world, the actual world, if you come to the classroom, so there may be students who will treat you in a different way. There may be students who will sort of answer you in different manners. So api balana, api TV එකේ හෝ අපි මොකක් හරි ස්ක්‍රීන් එකක අපිට පේන ළමයා අපේ ඒ දකින්න කෙනාගේ රිසෙප්ට් එක නේ. එයා අපිට ප්‍රතිචාර දක්වන විදිහටම නෙමෙයි අපි සමාජයට ගියාට පස්සේ අත්ත ජීවිතය ඇතුලේ මිනිස්සු ප්‍රතිචාර දක්වන. ඊට වඩා ගොඩාක් වෙනස්. There are lots of different shades of reactions. So how they react to the person. So that skill cannot be learned through a screen. So that's the thing. So ඒක නිසා තමයි අපි පොඩි කාලේ හරි අපි අදටත් අපි කියන්නේ පන්තිකට දැන්. For example, if you ask like hundreds of teachers which is more easier to teach, they would say like the classroom, even though it is the most embarrassing moment of your life, because the kids start shouting and they run around, but still a teacher would say, "Man කැමති පන්තියට ගිහලා උගන්නන්න." For example, sometimes I teach my first year classes. I have like nearly 300 students in one class. So within a 2-hour lecture, I can't even fit those 300 students into one screen. So literally, there are nearly 400 students, 250 students would not ever be seen by at least that small square part. But if you are in a classroom, I see every student. I see whether they understand it. I notice their sort of reactions, their facial expressions, see whether they don't understand whatever I say, then I can clarify it. Same as the kid. If the kid start to interact more with the humans, how to deal with the people, because what we are creating at the end of the day is a person who is more creative and who is sort of interactive with the people, with the society. How we can create a student or a kid who would go out, no matter, I mean, let him be a doctor, let him be a lawyer, whoever it is. If you are a doctor, how do you treat your patients? How do you talk to the patients? How do you get the answers from the patients? Some patients would be arrogant, some patients would be shy, some patients would be, very talkative, some patients would be sort of very shy and very, very silent. So how do you deal with different personalities? How do you interact with different people who has different habits and personalities? And then how do you incorporate that thing into your personal life? So that skill cannot, I wouldn't say like 100% cannot be, but still the practical thing cannot be learned through a screen. So that is something, if you can focus more on human interaction, that would sort of give more opportunity for the kid. So I'm not saying, I'm also using screen. This is also what we are doing in screen. So we use screen, that's fine. Using screen is not a crime. You won't get punished for that. But still, you have to be very smart and keep that balanced. So how do we do that? How do we teach? How do we let our nice kids to balance that? We adults know how to do that, but does the kids know that? So that's my problem. So we have to revisit that. Yeah.
So I have just one question.
Yeah, please.
Why the screen is so addictive to children? If we use the screens in a so effective manner, for example, let's say that we are doing a lesson or something. So rather than this physical doing, sometimes people like to do the same thing, to do the same learning with the video, something like YouTube or a cartoon or something like that. What is the failure that why we can't get the attraction of the children in that kind of a level?
I don't really get your question. Can you sort of?
So the screen is so addictive to children. Like for example, let's say they would like to watch a video or a song or something like that, or a game or something, rather than listening to a human voice. In the physical voice.
Right.
So screen is not. Screen is more attractive than the human the human being. So why is that? So what is the failure that even sometimes if we do a lesson physically, the child would like to see a video or something like that rather than listening to the lesson.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the question has the answer itself. The addiction is a human nature. So addiction is human nature. So you can be addictive to anything. So for example, some people who are addictive to certain things. When it comes to addiction, we think that addiction to drugs and all, but addiction can be anything. If you are addicted to hot water, that is addiction. That is also addiction. So for example, what you do is like you need it, your internal mechanisms create a need that something sort of should be there. So for example, it's very clear that why children are addictive to whatever the videos that they watch is, rather than listening to the teacher. So there is no choice in it. So when it comes to video, or what you watch is what you like. So you are not forced to choose that path. So for example, if I am really interested in listening to a certain song, or like watch a certain YouTube channel, so I would say like I would go with my preference. Sometimes the kid has to stay in a class where really they don't want to, right? So sometimes that might sort of, if it is motivated. So for example, I don't really like maths. I like science, I like biology, but I hate physics. So my physics lesson is somewhat like a Zoom lesson. My biology lesson was somewhat like watching a YouTube video. So because I'm addicted to biology, but I'm not addicted to physics. Because something that would create a sort of a need within yourself, which leads to an addiction. Because the videos that you watch, the students or the kids watch on the phone is of their choice. Sometimes the lessons that we learn via Zoom is not always their choice. Basically, there is no choice because they have to learn it, because it's in their curriculum. So basically I think that leads, that gives the answer. But literally, I think, yeah, that's the human nature, isn't it?
Hello, Mr. Bandara.
Yes.
First of all,
Yes,
thank you very much for very informative and very important presentation. And I have two questions. My son is in grade 1 B. His name Tenu Gunardana. And first question is, now my kid is a little bit addicted to screen. For example, when he want to eat in the morning or lunch or dinner, he want to watch a movie or cartoon. Otherwise, he reject to eat. Okay, so can you give me otherwise we need to feed, somehow we need to feed our kid, so we eventually I don't know, we try to give the phone, because otherwise he don't eat, he reject. So
Yeah.
how, I think this is an addiction. So we can you advise us how to control this kind of thing? Other thing is, I want to know whether there is impact impact with the screen time and the memory. If there is a bad impact to the memory of the kids when we are addicted with the screen. That is my other question. There is another question once you answer to this, alas.
Right. So thank you for that question. I think that is a very good question and a very practical question, which is faced by most of the parents today. So I guess, I mean, sometimes the answer lies inside the question. So that's why I told you the first time. It was us who gave the mobile or whatever the screen to the kid in the first place. So that is something that we did at the very first place. But it had very practical and very, I would say, very humane and acceptable reasons for doing so. As you say, like, we need our kids to be nurtured. We need our kids to have a good meal. So, for example, as a diversion, sort of as a distraction, we use the screen, and then we let the kid. I mean, but unfortunately, what happened is, I mean, I'm not a dietitian and I don't know, I can't comment on that, but I know for a fact that even the kid doesn't know that what the meal that she or he is taking in, I mean, what's in it. Because whatever I do is, like, you look at the screen, he would eat whatever you put it into his or her mouth. So I read this nice article. I actually practiced it. So that's I really know. So when my wife was conceived with our baby, I was advised by one of my foreign friends who studied with me in Australia. Say, Matt, why don't you download this app? And there is a nice uh, thing that you can register, and it will give you some practical things to do with your kid even before the guy is born. So for the feeding part, there was nice activity. So every week they give nice activities. For the feeding part, they'd say, like, first of all, you have to show that how to identify the colors and the texture of each food. So what you do is you keep a similar plate on the feeding table for the kid, and you take the plate you want to feed to your hand, and then let the kid play with this, and you be interactive with the kid, and you feed the person. So I would have easily, but the amount of food that the student, my kid was partake at that point was comparatively low when it is compared to the way that my mother used to feed me. Because she would take me and go in, I mean, around the bushes and everywhere, and until like 2 or 3 kilometers of walk, and then try to feed whatever left in that particular ball would be inside my stomach within 2 hours. But I would say, like, we didn't get that much feed, But what we have noticed gradually was my daughter has developed certain sense about the food that she eats. So that of course led that he or she would entertain the food that he or she takes. So if we can find a smart way to entertain the food with the kid, for example, just to garnish the food with something that he or she likes, say with some nicely chopped tomatoes or like a little bit of small flakes of parsley or something like that. Or I don't know whether, I mean, it doesn't matter. So then of course, try doing that. I know that it is very hard. I know that it is very hard. So if you can try it, so a little distraction. So phone is also a distraction. Try replace that distraction with another distraction. So if we can find that distraction, maybe you can take him away from that screen during the meal time. So that's the first question. For the second question, the relationship between the use of screen time and the memory, that of course, I'm not quite sure about it. I can look it for you and then I can get back to you because I can't comment on something that I don't really concretely know by facts. So, but I would say when it comes to the brain development, the excessive use of screen time has a serious impact. So that's something that we have to consider.
Okay.
So that,
Mr. Bandara, thank you so much for
thank you.
Mr. Bandara, thank you very much for your informative session. And I just have two. One is a request, second one is suggestion. The
Okay.
request is if you can kindly share that the presentation with us and with Mr. Upali sir, so then we can get it. I think it is very informative. I am attached to one of the hospital education, so where I can use it with my lectures. Thank you. And the second thing is, if you can kindly coordinate with Mr. Upali and go around the country and talk to every parents or every school student or the teachers how to develop these parts. It's a kind request.
Thank you very much. No, I think, I mean, that's something I was really think, you know, why? Because it's just our kids. We are dealing with a generation. We are dealing with our next generation. So there are no literally room for error. So if we missed with this generation, we will be really sorry. So that's the thing. I mean, there are a lot of, I mean, it is very easy for us to sort of give, you know, reasons or like explanations, and you say like, මොනා කරන්නද දැන් ඉතින් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ අපේ කාට කිව්වට අහන්නේ නැහැ වගේ දේවල්. But that can't really let, I mean, as an educator myself, I can't let this happen. Because why? Because it's the life of the next generation. So thank you very much. And I mean, I really thank the number of parents who are still here. I mean, it's tomorrow is a working day. So I know that it's a very dedication. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Bandara.
Yeah.
Kindly give me a few seconds to ask another questions.
Sure.
And other thing is, my son, he has a very special interest about inventing something or learning about engineering. He always try to, when we give a toy or car, he want to remove all the parts. He want to learn. Very recently, I had to all laptop. He got all the tool. He has all the screwdrivers, those things. He is much more interested of these tools. And he removed all the screws, and he want to know what is inside of the laptop. So he's like, I identify that he has some unique interest in engineering. And he tried to build small things, and So now what I want to, since my son has this kind of special things what we didn't have in our time, so how can we help them to improve these skills with the educations? So I want to support him to improve this born talent. So this kind of thing, sometimes if he focus only in his studies in his schools, so this born talents maybe sometimes he can, we want to support him to improve these things. So is there, now I found that one of my friends says there are some robotics class or electrics circuits preparation like that. The classes are available for small kids. Is it okay to send my son is in grade 1 now? Is it okay to join my son for that kind of classes in this small age? Can you please advise me?
Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, as a person, I'm against tuition classes. So that of course I can't advise in like, you know, sort of extent, because I think that the kids should be kids. So I mean, they have a good education and they get that from the school and stuff like that. So the rest of the things, they can experiment things, they can explore their lives very nicely. So but I'll come back to the point that you said, I mean, which is very important. So this is something that we have to understand. So there are potentials in every student that we that they show up from time to time. So if you can identify those potentials and let the children to develop those potentials into a bigger stage, so that might be so. In Sri Lanka we had a education system called Vibhavanurupi Adhyapani. සද්ධර්ම ලංකාරය කියන පොතේ තියෙනවා, it says that විභවානුරූපීව උපදෙස් ලදින් කියලා. So that necessarily means like they were taught according to the potentials they had. What potential they had, අපි කියන දූත ලක්ෂණේ බලලා උගන්වනවා කියලා. කියන්නේ බැලුවාම හිතනවා මෙයාට මොනවද පුළුවන්, මෙයාගේ moves කොහොමද. So එතකොට ඒ වගේ for those things actually we can gradually, I mean still he is in grade 1, so literally what we can do is try to just let them do what he do, and if he asks something to develop that, try to get it. And then of course gradually he will develop the passion into a level where, I mean, for example, if you go and put him into a robotics class, he will be like, because he's in grade 1 and he will be like, what is this? And then he would, I don't know whether it will be really effective, but one thing is what you can do is you let the student to be like engaged in things that you like. For example, if he like to create things, if you like to decentralize things, like decompartmentalize things and break it into different pieces, then of course you can reverse engineer it, saying like you give different number of pieces and ask them to create one thing. So like, you know what I'm saying, right? So for example, if the student, if your child is, he to get a laptop or something, like he want to like remove all parts and see what's inside, what you can do is there are lots of toys, like interactive toys. So those are like Legos and stuff. They would give you the internal parts separately and they would let you create something. So that of course he would see the building mechanisms of certain things that would help. So something that would fit for his age would be nice. I think I'm really happy that you talk and saying that you are trying to identify the potentials of the kids. So I mean that's a very good sign. So yeah, I guess that's something that you can do.
Let me add a little, Ms. Bandara and
Yes.
Ms. Ragana. At Polymer, I'm sure this is the only school having this type of an activity. From grade 6 onwards, we teach children a subject by the name of innovative thinking and implementation, which is very clearly parallel to what Mr. Gunardhan is trying to say. We have started it for grade 6 children because what we thought is that is the best stage that the children can get engaged in this type of thing. What Mr. Gunardhan mentioned is, as Mr. Bandara said, let him dismantle, let him do whatever things that according to his age. And once he reaches a couple of years in the classes, senior classes, I'm sure he will get the opportunity by engaging within the curriculum.
Yeah, and of course, let me add one thing for that. So the most important thing is, even though you don't nurture that potential, try not to destroy it. So most of the children, what happened to most of the kids in Sri Lanka, for that matter, is they would show some signs of, say for example, they would show a sign of a good artist, they would show a sign of a good musician, they would show a good sign of an architect, or a good sign of a doctor, good sign of somebody else. But sometimes what happened is, along the line, along the path, that potential has been sort of taken away by the parents or the system. So even though we don't support the potential, what we can do is we can let it grow within the person. So then the kid himself will decide at a point in their life, is this the right thing for me to do? Because if it is his passion, if it is something that is inborn and integrated, so he would definitely continue it, if you give this right support for that. So
wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Bandara.
thank you.
It's now 9 o'clock. I think it's better to wind up now. Before winding up, let me apologize again for the technical difficulty that we faced. It's a lesson learned for Polymath. We will not allow that to happen again. And Chapa, the deputy principal, would like to end the session by thanking Mr. Bandara, the resource person. Before that, I want to mention one thing, dear parents. To set an example, we sent this about this forum also in a written document, not through screens. We will try to continue it. We will try to use pens, paper and the pen and pencil in the future also, as much as possible, to set an example, not for any other thing. We know it's a little difficult task than using the screens, but we should set an example to the children that we are not giving much attention to the screen at this moment, because the children have to understand to know the screen is not that much of important when it comes to the learning activities, because as Mr. Bandara mentioned, it can distract the learning potential of the children, not for any other thing. Chapa?
Thank you, sir. Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Achintya Bandara, the senior lecturer of University of Colombo, for sharing his valuable information with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Bandara. It was very valuable and very helpful, because I know at this moment, as teachers as well as parents, we are facing a lot of difficulties with children because of some behavioral issues, attention problems, and things like this. And now with your lecture, with the knowledge that you gave us today, I think it will help the parents as well as the teachers to understand the children better. Thank you very much, Mr. Bandara. And I would like to thank our principal, Mr. Gunasekara, for giving us this opportunity to listen to Mr. Bandara's valuable advice. Thank you, sir. And thank you very much, parents, for joining us today. I think this helped you a lot, right? I think it gave you a good insight as to how to understand your child better and how to help them to behave well, and how to help them, and how to understand them, and how to give them your time, actually your valuable time. So I think this was a very valuable session, and I would like to thank our academic staff as well for joining. Thank you very much. And again, I would like to thank Mr. Achintya Bandara for this session. Thank you very much. And I would like to conclude by wishing all of you a very good night. Thank you very much.